Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russia was likely to intensify its attacks this week as Kyiv awaits a historic decision from the European Union on its membership application. It comes after a number of world leaders warned that the war in Ukraine could last for years, with the head of NATO saying the West must prepare to continue backing the country. Earlier, I spoke to our correspondent Joe Inwood, who gave us the latest from Kyiv.
President Zelensky didn't give details of exactly what escalation might look like. It could be that we're going to see an increase or a restarting of attacks on the north, on Kherson, on the northern territories. It could be that they intensify things coming on from the east, or it could be that this is President Zelensky trying to intensify pressure on the West to continue the heavy levels of support that they've been offering. So this was a warning, but without specifics from the president.
And with the world leaders warning about the fact that this could last for years, I mean, it's almost a kind of a dichotomy, because on the one hand, you've got Russia intensifying its attacks this week. What impact would it cause if that continues for years, potentially?
It's interesting, you get from the president, he has two different audiences. He has his domestic audience, to whom he always talks of there being the victory being assured. He puts a very positive view across. And to the West, he puts a much more, not negative necessarily, but a more cautious approach, because he wants to increase and continue the levels of support. I think probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. It really is difficult to predict exactly what's going to happen. We've seen the Russians really pushing into the east, I think, and that's where there could be an intensification. What the president has always said, the message he continuously puts across, is that they need continued support. And you talk there about the West, about Jens Stoltenberg of NATO, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying that this is going to last a long time. I think that'll be music to the ears of President Zelensky, because what he needs is the guarantee that they will continue their support, continue the flow of weapons, even if we start to see fatigue amongst their populations. We are already seeing the consequences of this war spread to other economies, whether that's the high price of food affecting people in Africa, or the high price of fuel and other commodities affecting people in the West, and food as well, we should say. And I think there is a danger, there's a concern here that war weariness, fatigue in those populations means that there's a diminishing support for the high levels of support that the West is giving President Zelensky and the Ukrainians. And I think the fear is, if there is a drop-off in support, they'd really be struggling on the battlefield.
Joe Inwood there. EU foreign ministers are meeting in Luxembourg to discuss how to ensure millions of tons of grain trapped in silos in Ukraine can reach needy countries. Russia is continuing to blockade Ukrainian ports, but blames Western sanctions on Moscow for creating the global food crisis. Earlier, the EU foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, hit back at Russia, accusing President Putin of committing a war crime.
Economic actors have to know that these products from Russia are out of the scope of our sanctions. So they can operate, they can buy, they can transport, they can insurance. The problem comes from the Russian blockade of the Ukrainian grain. Millions of tons of wheat is being blocked. And millions of people will not be able to eat this wheat. So the war is going to have dramatic consequences for the world. We call to Russia to deblockade the ports and let these products go. It's inconceivable. One cannot imagine. One cannot imagine that millions of tons of wheat remain blocked in Ukraine, while in the rest of the world people are suffering hunger. This is a real war crime.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell there.